Hi, and welcome back to 10-Minute Bible. I think in the last video I forgot to mention which number in 10-Minute Bible we had there, and I think that was number 13, so this would be number 14. Thanks for joining in. And so we're in the middle of Luke chapter 6, and the last couple of 10-Minute Bibles I've sort of highlighted how Jesus is drawing his listeners to trust him as opposed to his listeners trusting the other religious leaders of the day who, in Jesus' mind, were making some very wrong-headed alliances with the political powers. And Jesus saw a pattern being repeated here that in the Old Testament, in the pre-Jesus parts of the Bible, this would sometimes happen, which would lead to very disastrous results for the people, and also something of the judgment of God was involved in these things. So Jesus is saying, stay with me, and the kingdom of God, you will discover it, and there will be a path forward. It will be good. It may be difficult, but it is the path you should be on. And I ended last time by focusing on Jesus's saying something like, are you ready for the truth? And the truth that he begins with is love your enemies, and he repeats that, which is quite a challenging statement to say to people, love your enemies. And I'm going to dwell on that. Well, the passage dwells on it, and Jesus lays out some of the ways in which love for enemies can be practiced. And I should warn you ahead of time that none of that is particularly easy. Somebody once said that the thing about Christianity is that it's never really been tried. And I think what the person saying that was getting at was that many people see these commands of Jesus about how we should be living, and they're so challenging that most of us just don't even go very far with them. And there's probably some truth to that, but I think that we should understand these challenges that Jesus lays before us and see what we can do with them. So Jesus says, I'm telling you the truth. This is how you must live from now on if you're going to stay with me. Love your enemies. And then in the Bible version I've got here in front of me, the Message, it's put very nicely, let your enemies bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond by praying for that person. And if someone slaps you in the face, stand there and take it. In some of the Bible translations, the expression that's used there is that if somebody slaps you in the cheek, offer the other one to be slapped as well. And I think we have difficulty with that because we think, well, what about when someone is bullied, or what about in the international scene when a country attacks another country? What should we do? So these are kind of tough things. I've got a feeling that, if you're an 8 or 10-year-old kid and somebody starts to give you a hard time, it might not be a bad thing, to if somebody punches you to kind of give it back and just kind of say, well, I'm not going to just take that. And I think, when nations organize violence against one another, it's also very hard for the country that's being attacked to just do nothing. So I don't think Jesus is unaware of these kinds of things. But here's the thing. I think Jesus noticed something that we all notice, and that is that there is a tradition in the world, around the world really, a tradition of retaliation, giving back to somebody the evil that they have done to you. And this shows up in the Bible. In one of my other video series, I comment on a person named Lamech, who was a real piece of work back in the very early pages of the Bible, and he boasted that someone who had wounded him Lamech turned around and killed him. And so Lamech was really a perpetrator of this tradition of ratcheting up and the violence and taking revenge. And that kind of thing has been going on throughout the history of the human race, and it's caused us a lot of trouble. If we keep on retaliating and ratcheting up, upping the ante, then eventually the violence spins out of control and wars start. And there can be terrible things that happen in terms of crimes and murder on a smaller scale than war, but these are all terrible things. And so Jesus is laying out a different path. He cuts out the validity of the tradition of revenge, and he says we have to learn to love even our enemies. And then Jesus has some, I don't know if you want to call them exaggerated ways of making the point. Maybe you could take it that way, but if we do, still we have to allow ourselves to be challenged by Jesus' perspective here, that we're not to retaliate against people in the way that people normally do. If we're following Jesus, we in that sense become children of God. There's a different path, and it does not include retaliation, but it breaks the cycle of retaliation. So sometimes we maybe do have to stand there and take it. Maybe sometimes if someone has offended you, maybe to communicate to the person, well, if you've struck me once, maybe strike me again. Maybe that's a way of saying to the person, or communicating to that person who struck you that he or she is guilty of doing something wrong. Anyway, where Jesus wants to get us to is this notion of, as it says in this version I have here, live generously. Live generously. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, try to use that occasion to find some way to live generously, even towards that person. So maybe think about that a little bit. I once had a neighbor who gave me a very hard time about some of the things I was doing in my property, and I was kind of tempted to build a fence, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but building a fence as a way of retaliating against the neighbor is not. I don't think this is what Jesus allows me to do. So maybe in your own life too, you can figure out just how this needs to be played out, loving the enemy. Okay, so then Jesus goes on and he says, here's kind of what it boils down to, and when it comes to relating to other people. Ask yourself, and I'm reading from the Message again, what you want people to do for you, and then take the initiative and do that for them. And then Jesus goes on to say, if you only show love to lovable people who in your mind are lovable, or in my mind are lovable, if you only show love to those people, if you only show friendship to people who you think are friendly, people who are friendly to you, that's easy as pie. Everybody does that. Every miserable sinner on the planet can do that. Everybody is able to, do favors for people of their own tribe or their own family, people who are going to, repay them with other kind deeds. And of course, Jesus would not say that we should be unkind, towards our friends and neighbors and the people who are going to, return to you your kindness. That's all a good part of life and the way God wants us to live. But the thing is, if we're following Jesus' path, we're called to something even stronger, even better, and that is to show love and as much kindness as we can to the people who might not show you kindness back. And then Jesus goes on, he repeats here, love your enemies. It's kind of like this repeated chorus. At least twice now we've read it, love your enemies. And it's kind of like if you can do that, then all the rest becomes, so to speak, easy. But he goes on with some encouraging insights. Help without expecting anything in return. Sometimes I think almost all of us have been helped by someone who didn't expect anything in return, and that's an awesome experience. People have done that for us, and when we do that for them, we also present them with an awesome experience. And this is the kind of life that God calls each one of us to live. And I'm going to end with Jesus' comments about being judgmental. Again, there's a lot of judgmentalism on the world today, especially online. People of different political parties being extremely judgmental towards others of other political parties, and so to the point where they cannot even cooperate any longer, even though they should. Has a very negative impact on all kinds of people. People have their different tribes and different communities that they're in favor of, and woe to anyone who steps on the toes of your tribe or of your community. You're gonna get it in the neck, online. You see so much of this in today's world, and this is totally negative, I think, in our world, and I think it totally would violate anything that Jesus teaches us about how to live. So he says, don't pick on people, don't jump on people for their failures, but because that stuff can so easily be turned back on you. You will be judged in the same way that you judge others. So Jesus says, be easy on people. Life will be easier. You'll find that people respond to you in a better way. Life will be given back to you in that sense, and it will be given to you not just in little bits and pieces, but in a big way. When we're not judgmental, but when we see the best in people, and when we allow people mistreating us to bring out the best in us, I think life becomes different. It becomes filled with blessings and bonuses and receiving more from life than we give. Generosity begets generosity is how this section ends in this Bible version. So anyway, some incredible things to think about. Clearly Jesus is calling his followers, his people, to live a new kind of life, and he's calling me and you into the same kind of action, attitudes, and behavior. So let's do that. And it may be difficult at times, but let's enjoy that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.